everyone. On behalf of Peer21, good afternoon. My name is Wei Bin and I'll be moderating the session for today. All right, so Peer21 was established in 2018 jointly by MPA, Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, and as well as NUS Enterprise. Now, we boost innovation in the maritime and maritime-related industries by attracting talents, creating opportunities for the exchange of knowledge and ideas, attracting investments into startups and accelerating ventures. Now, Smart Port Challenge is Peer21's annual flagship program. Every year, we work in partnership with maritime corporates to turn their business challenges into opportunities and then gather the best ideas from startups around the world and put them through Peer21 Accelerate, a fast track towards creating a market-ready and viable product solution. Now, this year, Smart Port Challenge 2021 offers 17 innovation opportunities co-created with 21 maritime corporates. Today, this is the second series. This is also part of a series of roadshows to allow startups to get a better grasp of these opportunities. Now, to the innovators, what's in it for you if you apply? You'll be eligible to apply for MPA grant of up to $50,000 to be connected to the Singapore maritime ecosystem and, of course, to get the solutions adopted by the industry. Today, we are very happy to have invited Bernhard Schulte, Wilhelmsen and Jurong Port to talk about their innovation opportunities. So during our discussion and sharing, we invite you to hit the Q&A button below at the Zoom function. If you have any questions for our representatives from the various corporates. Now, let's dive into the first innovation opportunity. Now, let's look at the greener alternatives and reduction in plastic pollution. Environmental sustainability is obviously an industry-wide concern, and in fact, it's a global concern. Plastic is one of the biggest contributors to pollution, and yet large quantities in the form of drinking water bottles, chemical pills, packaging are currently being used on board vessels. Now, whenever we talk about this, there's always two aspects that we are talking about. Could be in a way of reduction of plastics and as well as the recycling. Now, today on the topic of reduction of plastics use, I actually have with us today Kim Liang from Bernhard Schulte. Would you like to share more?
Yeah, I think first of all, just a slight correction. I'm from actually Everise Shipping Services. Maybe just a quick introduction about ourselves. We are literally a more customer-focused ship chandler, with definitely a strong focus on innovation and technology. So currently we have 3 locations. We have Singapore, Shanghai, and Panama. And what we essentially do is we supply food, bonded products, stores, consumables, and spares to the vessel from shore. With 3 locations, we have 1.8 million cubic feet of warehouse space. And as a ship chandler, I believe our carbon footprint might not be as significant as the ship managers or ship owners, but definitely we want to do our part. And that's where we want to work with forward-looking partners like BSM or Bernhard Schulte, with Wilhelmsen and many others, essentially to reduce our impact to the environment. So essentially one of the biggest impact we see at this point of time is plastics. And that's where we come from. And that's where we are looking at maybe potential innovations on how to reduce this. What do I mean? So essentially on a per month basis, ESS as a ship chandler, we consume maybe 3.5 football fields worth of cling wrap. We are not the biggest ship chandler out there, nor are we the smallest, but we are just one of them. So if somehow or other this can be let's say disrupted, we will definitely be able to leave less of a carbon footprint in the environment. Of course, there are many solutions out there. There might be other alternatives for other cling wraps, maybe biodegradable and so on and so forth, but this comes at a cost. This cost, I believe, who will bear, but in the end, what we are looking for is a win-win solution where it's not only environmentally friendly, but most importantly, it is commercially viable. Essentially, that's what we are looking for together with the other bigger ship owners and ship managers. So yeah, that's essentially the general problem which we are facing now.
Thanks, William. Hyman, do you have anything to add?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. I'm Hyman. I lead the innovation arm of the Schulte Group, a part of which is also Bernhard Schulte as a ship owner and BSM as ship manager. So we own about 100 vessels and manage about 600. And yeah, we definitely look for solutions to reduce plastic on board. We also co-led one challenge last year that was specifically for the use of plastic bottles on board. This year, we are also very keen to see a reduction in the packaging material that is that needs to be disposed of when goods are delivered on board. And here we would like to challenge anyone answering to this challenge to think outside the box and see what solutions are out there, whether it's a biodegradable cling wrap alternative or whether it is a totally different solution, right, for the delivery on board. So we are very open to give startups and innovators a platform and a testing ground to try it out. I mean, we do have a lot of ships coming into Singapore pretty much on a daily basis. So we're very much looking forward to the responses to this challenge this year.
Thank you. What about Jessica? Is there anything to say?
So similar to what Hyman has said, we are excited to see if there are new innovators or startups that can give us new ideas out of the box.
All right. Okay. So Hyman, earlier you mentioned you've actually thrown in a challenge statement. Was it last year that's related to plastic reduction as well? How has the experience been? And do you manage to find related startups that's actually solved your solution or your problem?
It's a challenging topic because with for the plastic bottles itself, it's that's also sort of a mentality challenge to change the mindset of people on board, of seafarers on board. So it's not only providing clean drinking water, it also we need to overcome that. So that's been it's definitely a challenging topic. So we've been discussing with various startups solutions that monitor the drinking water quality. For us, we are still I think we would be looking for something where we would have maybe a device on a tap, maybe on every floor of the ship, to see that the drinking water is safe. We've been exploring some solutions with startups, and the experience has been definitely very, very much educational. But so far, we don't have a solution that we can roll out fleet-wide.
Right, but I hear you that you wanted it to be out of the box and perhaps things that could perhaps innovate and to surprise you, right?
Absolutely. So, I mean, anything in that direction, we would be very happy to take a closer look. Okay.
All right. All right. So today we have with us as well Vishal from Wilhelmsen. On the topic of plastics recycling, can you share with us on some of the efforts that Wilhelmsen is doing and currently what are the kind of innovation opportunities that you're looking at?
Yeah, thanks, Vipin, and thanks to all the panelists. So I think very well covered in terms of the plastic pollution. I'm Vishal. I'm from Wilhelmsen Marine Products. We are a part of the Wilhelmsen group, and we are one of the biggest suppliers of maritime products to the shipping industry. So of course we have you would say, like, skin in the game. Now, when we look at the plastic pollution, it's not only about recycling. The way usually the phrase that you all have heard is about reduce, reuse, and recycle. And of course, if you can reduce the plastic, at the very source, that's kind of good. Like your example of plastic bottles, but then you also have the reuse. And as Wilhelmsen, we are actually doing our bit, coming out with more concentrated chemicals, mixing stations, also working with the different suppliers so that we can use the plastic that is being recycled. But it's the recycle part, the end bit, which is kind of quite interesting, because what happens is that whatever plastic is on board today, you have different regulations as per MARPOL. So you have to make sure that the plastic is landed safely on shore. But here, what we know is that there is no standard solution. So in case of some ports where there is a very good infrastructure, there is a proper procedure in the way plastic is handled. In some cases, it's not like that, where the master has to align with the contractor. So the challenge I want to put forward is that, or we want to put forward is that, can we do something across all the three dimensions, like reduce, reuse, or recycle? And it could be that like no one has thought until now, can we do something to recycle plastic on board itself before you actually land it on shore? Because once you land it on shore, the visibility in terms of what is happening with the plastic, I think that is not there yet. So there are different ways I think this problem can be solved with the objective of reducing the plastic pollution. And last thing I want to say is that one of the things we have heard is that you might say, okay, I'm landing X amount of plastic on shore, but who is keeping a note of how much plastic you're taking in, right? So at the moment, there is no, I would say, a clear, it doesn't match sometimes. So are there any solutions by means of which you can have a very good visibility on the amount of plastic you're taking on board, and then making sure that, that plastic is being landed safely or being recycled? So yeah, so that's kind of, that's from my side, and quite excited to see this being put in the startup space, because this is really a problem which needs to be solved.
Thanks, Vishal. Just a quick one. Earlier you mentioned it has to be in some form of compliance. Could you
No, what I meant is that there are certain regulations like MARPOL Annex 5, where by means of which means you cannot just dump plastic into the sea, right? So that's why your plastic has to be landed ashore. But the thing is, it's not there's no standardized solution, because the port facilities are different all over the world. So in some cases, the ports are directly involved in taking care of this plastic and recycling. In some cases, they're using contractors. And I think that's a kind of, sometimes not very transparent. So can we come up with something which is better than the status quo, whether it starts from reducing, again, the bottle example, or reusing, or actually recycling?
Right. Thank you. Right, just a reminder, if you have any questions, you could also type your questions in the Q&A chat box here while we continue to go ahead with this conversation. So currently, Vishal, what are the kind of methods that you're using right now when it comes to recycling of plastic? Perhaps you can give us a bit of an insight of what Wilhelmsen is currently doing.
Yeah, not so much on the recycling part, because we are the supplier of the maritime products. So we are focused more on the reduction and the reuse part of it, because that's the products we supply. For the recycling, I don't know, maybe like Heyman, if you want to pitch in here, if there's something happening across the ship owners or ship managers.
Yeah, Heyman, is there anything we can learn from you when it comes to recycling?
Yeah, on the recycling on board, I'm not too sure, to be honest, because this is not really my the area where I've been looking into. We would have to get someone from the BSM management, I think, to get better insights into that. We can dig into that in the aftermath, of course. But yeah, unfortunately,
I can jump in here. Sorry. Basically, what is happening on board today, as I said, is that whatever plastic you have, you need to kind of land it ashore for recycling. To the different ports have different kind of you have the port fees where this plastic recycling is kind of a part of it. But as I said, there's no standardized solution. So if you ask me exactly what is happening in all the different parts of the world, then I cannot give you an answer. And I think that's also part of the challenge, that how, when it comes to recycling, can we do it better than what what is happening now? Or maybe if this is good enough, then that's also fine.
All right. So are there any certain requirements for plastic packaging? Back to anyone who can actually jump in, or Kim Yang, when it comes to it, does it have to be lightweight, durable, etc.?
Essentially, most of the palletized cargo has a variety of weights, but I think 2 tons per pallet is a general requirement because the lifting belt is around 2 tons. Of course, depending on the cargo nets, that can, of course, have a heavier weightage to this. But you can see how technically convenient the plastic is. The overall lightweight, cost effectiveness, and the sheer ease of availability is definitely around. There are, of course, other solutions there, which comes at a cost. This cost, who will bear? And I think like what Heyman and Vishal and Jessica has all mentioned, we need to think a little bit out of the box, because just for me, maybe if there are other ways where I can recycle the packaging material rather than throwing it away, or maybe I can reuse the packaging material, that could also be something we can look at. And I believe, especially with the COVID situation, a lot of things needs to be looked at in more detail in terms of contamination and spread of the virus. So if somewhere along the line, some form of control can be achieved, because when I deliver the pallets on board, they will strip it out. And this plastics, where do they go? They either keep it on board the ship or they land it back down to shore.
Yep.
Depends on how fast they clear this. In the end, the plastic is, I would generally say that maybe 50 to 60% of the plastics come back down. It generally doesn't move to another port for the ship's handling portion of things. But for the rest, maybe it goes further to the other ports where the compliance might be indeed something which we need to look at in more detail.
Yep. And I just want to add, this cling wrap example is a very good one, because when, let's say, you are sending all the different products on board, cling wrap, as far as I know, is the best thing to make sure that it's packed quite nicely. And also many of the ships are at anchorage, so they're not going to come to port. So you have to make sure that, when you are lifting the products from the barge onto the vessels, you'll not say, okay, I want to say safe cling wrap, so I will just, maybe not pack it that nicely. You have to be 100% sure that, everything is packed very tightly. And therefore you do use a lot of cling wrap. And therefore your example of wall feel was pretty, was pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm just one of them. There's so many.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, building on what Kim Liang said earlier, would you be able to sort of walk us through the entire process of the ship services? At what stage does the ship chandler needs to, the crew needs to unwrap and handle the packaging?
Yeah, I think as a start, like with every purchasing process, someone needs to quote for the price, quote for the products. When these are quoted and a purchase order is issued, we will arrange all forms of products from our warehouse or from other sub-suppliers to be delivered into a warehouse, where this is then consolidated, packed, and then cling wrapped. We will then tag the products in the pallets so that the vessel will know which items are where. And this helps with their, let's say, sorting of the products. The problem comes when it goes on board the ship. On board the ship, you have so many different ship owners. We have like 200 plus ship owners and ship managers. Everyone has a different style. Someone wants to, and even not even the owners, maybe the vessels, maybe the captain, maybe the crew, they have a different way of, let's say, stripping down the products, right? And this means that if they want their chocolate now, they will tear it open, and then they will take the chocolate now and consume it, right? And that could also be one of the scenarios. So this needs to be worked together with like-minded individuals and partners, and of course at the same time add value to reduce the impact onto the environment. So when it's on board the ship, in the past, 1 or 2 representatives will go on board, but now because of COVID, it gets more and more strange and stricter, I would say, because rules keep changing every now and then, and that's where less and less controls we have on what's happening on board the ship.
Do you think there could be potential in solving some of the processes, or to look into other than just the packaging itself, but to look into some of the change in process or the business model solution. Because earlier, William, you mentioned that sometimes it depends on how the crew does it, right? There's a certain level of flexibility involved. So so what would you say about if, let's say, we look into this change in some of the processes that could potentially help rather than just a material change?
Yeah, I think what Vishal mentioned much earlier was actually very true. So cling wrap is more or less the most economical way of moving things in the most stable way on board the ship. With the variety of vessels calling Singapore, you have containers, you have tankers, you have bulk carriers. All these vessels have a different way of loading. Some will go to Jurong port, some will stay at anchorage, some will be at PSA terminals. Of course, at terminals, it's easier to control because there you can have, let's say, a more stringent approach where some people use metal cages, for example. That can, of course, be implemented, but what happens to the logistics afterwards? These metal cages are in the end some cost involved, and we will be fighting whose metal cage this belongs to. And if we were to look at something at the anchorage, it's also tricky because the barge which is hired might not belong to any of us, and then there's some third party doing the transport. So for me, the process change does help, but some of the very physical restrictions prevent further change. And to change one company is easy. To change two companies might be challenging. To change the whole industry, that takes a bit more effort and time.
Right. I have a very interesting question from the Q&A side. Someone is asking, what is the key driver for this need of reduction of plastic? Was it from the regulators that you get the pressure from, or was it a mounting cost? Anyone can take this?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think as a ship owner and also a large ship manager, we are very keen to do our part in helping to get more more environmentally friendly solutions for the packaging, because plastic waste is just a huge problem that we are facing across the oceans, across the rivers. And that's a problem that just gets bigger and bigger. So obviously we want to do our part to reduce that. And there are obviously some regulations, some of them not so very well harmonized, as Vishal also mentioned. So it's not too much the pressure from the regulators as such, but really a drive from from various ship owning and ship management companies. The cost, well, as Gim mentioned, we need economically viable solutions to be able to implement the sort of more environmentally friendly solutions, right? So we definitely need something that is cost effective. It is not so much currently, I think, the pressure to reduce it, but the drive really comes from, I think, the idea that we want to solve the underlying problem.
Basically, the CSR component of it.
You could say that, yeah.
All right. So thank you. Thanks, Heyman. Before I wrap this session up, is there any final thing that you want to say, Vishal?
Actually, that was a very interesting question. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So that was an interesting question. Okay, what is the drive? Of course, like, everyone is talking about the plastic pollution in oceans. About 70 to 80% comes from land-based sources, but the remaining 20 to 30% is coming from the maritime industry. So the industry has a very important role to play, considering that ships, go around go around the world. So it's the CSR part is one bit, but the regulations are there, and if not now, then at least in the foreseeable future, we expect like more and more focus on this one, right? Like what's happening with the consumers, also with with some of our customers, they do care, right, about what is the plastic footprint, how we can bring down the plastic. So there are a lot of different things. As the regulations, is the CSR concept is also the cost is also a very important factor of it, because the more plastic you have on board, the more you have to actually land ashore, and that does add to the cost. So quite a few different things, and that's why I believe there are 3 companies here today talking about the plastic issue.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right. So this is all for this innovation opportunity about the reduction of plastic pollution. Well, if you have any questions, you could still drop your Q&A, your questions on the Q&A chat box. If not, you could also email us separately with your questions. Now, then we'll move on. Thank you. Thank you, Heyman, Kim Liang, Jessica, and Vishal. I'm just going to move on to the next innovation opportunity. And with me here this afternoon, I have Jurong Port and this Parik from Jurong Port. We all know that Jurong Port is a multi-purpose port that handles general cargo, and it relies on ground staff to manually identify and count the cargoes as they are being unloaded from the vessels. So they're actually looking for a solution to automate the process of identifying, tallying, and feeding the data into their digital tally system. Parik, you're here. Okay. I hear you actually have a very extensive deck on this innovation challenge, so I shall not hold you further. Over to you, Parik.
Okay, thanks, guys. A warm welcome to all of those who are listening to this. I'm going to share a deck of slides because our problem is pretty unique. I wish it was a global problem like the environmental, so that many people are looking at it, but it is not. So I'm going to share a few things with you guys so that you can perhaps understand and get an overview of how operations work in Jurong Port, and then from there on, I will then look into the solution we are, kind of seeking. Let me just share my slides. Can I just do a check if everybody is able to see my slides?
Yeah, we're looking at your screen right now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let me put it to the presentation mode. Okay, so today I'm pretty excited to share this thing with you guys, and I hope you guys are excited as well to look at our problems and come up with very creative solutions to it. I'll just move on to some of the basics of it. Because I understand some of you may or may not be from the maritime industry, and that's good in a way, because you can be more creative and you don't have any baggage to carry around with you. So I'll just
that's like the beauty of it. You can actually get folks from other industries to solve the challenges.
Yes, correct. So maybe I'll just give a quick overview. So from here you can basically see how a bulk carrier looks like, and typically for general cargo. You can see in the plan view of the ship how the cargo has been arranged. Well, this is a very good one. But again, you can see that various cargo holds and the ship cranes, which are on the deck itself, are typically used for handling this cargo. In the cross-section view, you can see how the cargo is placed on the right top corner. Now, when it comes to the wharf, you can see in the images here, there are different, when it comes to the general cargo segment, it's not containerized. And it's not modular, so it is not very easy to handle them, because you are now handling cargo, piece by piece, and that increases, the amount of work needed for tallying, as well as actually the lifting part of it. So you can see here, we handle a lot of different cargos. On the left bottom, you can see there are pipes. In the center, you can see there's a huge a section of marine oil and gas, shipment. And you also on the right, you can see there are long pipes which are really big. On the right bottom corner, you can see the bulk cargo itself. It's cement in this case. We move on to the kind of typical cargo holds. So this should give you a hint of a scale. You can see the human figure inside there, and the kind of mix of cargo. You can see coils, you can see rebars, and in the bottom left corner you can see concrete trucks. You can see wheel loaders. You can see trucks. You can see pipes. So it's all sort of mixed cargo coming in, right? Then this slide actually kind of gives you a flavor of all the things that we have. I would say not all, but most of it. You can see livestock. You can see MRT bogies inside. You can see yachts. You can see, in fact, there's a helicopter here. You can see a small plane. So basically everything under the roof, we handle it, and you can now understand perhaps the scale and the complexity of it. So I think this is important for you guys to know that when you do kind of automation in cargo counting, the module that you're looking at is not like a container where it's a box is a box and it's going to be every time the same. Whereas in our case, it's going to be all multiple type of cargo, and the machine learning aspect comes into the picture. Of course, you need to have a database for it, but then that is how we want to build it up. Now, in this slide, what I'm going to kind of highlight here is the kind of materials, and each one of them, you can see there are pipes, there are flat bars, there are hollow sections of steel, there are coils, and all these have a different product type, and when they may go to different consignees. So what the Teleclub needs to do is to identify this particular cargo type, who it belongs to, and then send it to the right place to be railed out. Now, all this is happening live when the cargo is being taken out, and just to make it complex further, all of these may not be taken out in sequence. So you can see how much the human being on the ground, who is the Teleclub, needs to be adaptable in terms of what is coming next. And then again, he kind of in the past it was manual. I'm going to share later, and now at least we have digitalized that portion of it. But again, when we want to further automate it using the AI as well as recognition and counting, how it's going to help. But this should give you an overview of the kind of complexity a single hatch has. And then you have 4 of them working at the same time. So you multiply times 4, and you multiply times many vessels at the port, and then you get the scale of it.
So Pari, I'm just going to stop you here. How long does it take for all this counting?
It is the whole vessel could be here for like 3 to 4 days, and we have teleclerks in shift continuing the job, to take over from one on the other, and then it keeps on accumulating. So end of every shift, he needs to kind of tally it and then give it to the next guy, and that was all manual until now. Until last year, we've now taken up to a digital stage. But I'll quickly share a video later how they are now using an iPad to at least do the entries, whereas in the past they used to write on a piece of paper, scribble it, and then go back and then again put it into an Excel. Then from there on, hand over to the next guy. So that is how it was done, because the guys who are there on ground more than 60 years old. So you can't expect them to, overnight walk into digitalization. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. This again kind of gives you an overview of, equipment itself. There's a wheel loader there. There's an excavator on the top. You can see sections of a construction, a shed. You see pipes, and also pipes for oil and gas and maritime industry sometimes, which are huge. You can see the scale, the human being standing on that pipe. Yeah, it's just huge. And just imagine we are picking them one by one. So the kind of inventory tracking or the cargo tracking we do, it is a bit complex and non-standard. Yeah.
But is there a priority that you're looking at right now when it comes to which?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm going to share it later, and I'm trying to kind of not frighten them off and make it a bit more organized so that they can understand what perhaps could be achievable at the first stage. Yeah. Okay, and then there you can see the kind of chain. Now just imagine how you want to get this spaghetti out of the vessel. The guy there should be scratching his head where to start from, right? And that's how we end up with the unloading port side handling all these problems. So yeah, I mean, these are the challenges we face on our side.
And it is actually very dangerous as well, right?
Yes, absolutely the point. And safety is one of the biggest challenge we always face. And that's, I mean, that could be one of the challenge statements someday. But one of these is actually going to kind of help us with that as well. And I'm going to explain it in detail as well. What I want to show in this image is particularly on the left bottom. You can see there are coils, and then there are plates, and then trucks on top of them, and the trucks again carry a separate pallet on it. So, it's very difficult and different from how we handle containers, which is pretty homogeneous, I would say, in a way, and modular. Yeah, you see how these guys are going to, handle this sort of cargo. Now, let me move on to the actual problem statement itself. Perhaps you would have read through some of it in the publication itself, but I'll just quickly run through. As in the title remains the same, what I'm going to, share here is the outline of it. So what we're expecting is, the video analytics solution should leverage on the machine learning. You can see, as you see different cargoes, you try to machine learn, you put them into a database, and the next time you handle the same cargo, you are able to do that much more efficiently. And then whatever this data and the tallying that is going to be done, it is going to link to our existing digital tally system, so that right now the guy is still using an iPad and manually keying in the cargo that has been handled, and we want that process to be automatically linked, so that the camera learns, the AI processes it, and then straight away puts it into the digital tally system. So that's what we are looking at here. The identification and counting are the two aspects of this particular challenge. I'll share a bit more in detail later, but then I just want to highlight here that we have two operations. One is at the main port, which handles all the kind of general cargo that you've seen so far. And then there's another lighter terminal where in the ESS guys, kind of do the ship supplies to the mother vessels in the anchorage. That is a bit, I would say, a simpler operation. But again, we are handling, multiple type of cargo there as well. As in the pain points here, you can see you need to have knowledge of the cargo being handled. So there's a learning curve similar to the human beings. Basically, even the I would say the video analytics platform itself will also need to learn. There are always human errors currently happening, and hopefully with this system we can eliminate that. And the biggest challenge actually is the safety risk here, which the Teleclub needs to be near the cargo and the heavy machinery that's sending the cargo to count it, and then kind of I would say direct the guys where to bring it. So that's the other part. In terms of the desired outcomes, yeah, I mean, of course, it's an automated system for identification through video analytics, and we're going to count the cargo, we're going to identify it, and then put into the system. Now, what we're going to achieve is the tally clerk here is no longer going to be required at the WAF, so that he is away from the actual operations, and that makes it much more safer. And then because there's a lot of machine involved in the counting, this Teleclub could be used for some other tasks as well, right? And I think the benefits are here, jotted down. You can see it's going to be obviously more safer and accurate with a live data feed that can go into the website, and even our customers can actually see, the status of their cargo being kind of taken up. Constraints wise, I think I'll share more in details later. But then in terms of the basic ones, I would say there's a huge range of cargo variety that you need to kind of learn and then implement. And then the other part is actually on the kind of video feed you can get, because at times the angle may not be perfect because the ship length is different. Because of the module size, sometimes the camera may not be in a standard position. So these are the challenges that come from the work environment itself. Now let's look into the operations itself, how it works. Now I've laid out a very simplistic version of the operation here. That kind of defines it in a way. So on the left side, you can see where the vessel is in a plan view, and the cranes being used to kind of take out, in this case, it's kind of bundle of rebars, wherein the black guy there, which is the tally clerk, is going to count which kind of cargo it is, whether it's a 16 mm or 32 mm rebar, how many bundles have been lifted in each lift. And then the forklifts will then put it into a trailer. The trailer will then bring it to a yard. At the yard itself, again, the forklifts will again take it out from the trailer. And the tally clerk needs to kind of, be at both sides to make sure that there is no leakage of cargo, because, the truck from the WAF can go out directly. and doesn't inline into the yard. So there's a cargo tracking that is involved here as well. So this basically, here you can see, sorry, let me just go back. Yeah, here you can see where the Teleclub is standing, and the zone where the cargo has also been lifted overhead, as well as at the same time the two forklifts operating in tandem to lift the rebars. So again, it becomes a bit difficult, in terms of managing safety, because he needs to be close enough to see what kind of rebar, because there's a very little difference between a 13 mm rebar and a 14 mm rebar, and he needs to be accurate. So I mean, then lies the difficulty. Well, now let's move on to the kind of actual operations. You can see here in the video. This should give you a quick view of what is happening. On the left side top, you can see the hatch activities where the stevedores are rigging the cargo and it's been taken out. On the right side top, you can see the cargo has been unloaded onto the wharf, wherein these riggers will then unrig the cargo, and the tally clerk is actually standing where the camera is. And at times, because this is going to be a typical load for perhaps the next 20 loads, so he doesn't need to go far, close enough. But if it is a different one, he needs to go close enough and then see what kind of cargo it is. Here you can see on the right side top video, the color painted on the side of the rebars on the cross section, which then kind of gives us an identity to it to say what kind of a bundle it is. So red being, for example, in this case is maybe a 20 mm rebar, and that's how he keeps on telling it onto the iPad. On the bottom side, you can see a loading operation wherein coils are being loaded from the wharf to the ship, and a similar way, kind of follows. Now, maybe I'll just move on to where the cameras are currently located at. So you can see the cameras at the hatch itself, where you can see the previous footage wherein you saw the cargo bin rigged and unrigged into the cargo hold. And there's another one on the deck itself, which actually captures the activities on the wharf to see where it is. And you can see the two guys standing there in the yellow barricade. That's where the tally clerk stands, and then he kind of checks the cargo and tallies it back. Now, the right side top video earlier you saw was from this, the camera, which is on the wharf, which is looking at the cross section of the cargo. So that's the current setup we are following for capturing the footage. Now let's move on to the next part, which is actually, the guy we're talking about so much, the Teleclub, and what he does actually. Now, his location is at two places, one on the wharf and the other one at the yard side, which I think I've shared earlier. Now, he has basically 3 steps to do. One is the cargo identification. The next is to count it and then tallying it. So you can see here, for the cargo identification, he needs to look at various things. For example, color on the rebar code, the tags at the time. Sometimes it's tags. Sometimes it's the color coding on the steel plate. You can see at the top left corner at the steel plates. Then it could be just paint kind of loaded onto the coils to just identify what kind of coil it is, and also by consignees. So he's actually processing so much of data at one time to then make that call where to send the cargo and whom it belongs to. Now we look at the counting of the cargo. So typically he needs to then look at each piece, how many pieces there are. In this case, for rebar bundles, he doesn't need to count the rebar inside, but he needs to know the diameter of the rebar. And then because typically each bundle is actually a 210 bundle, so that he doesn't need to count. He just counts the bundle and the diameter of the rebar. That is for the rebars. But in terms of pipes, steel plates, he counts by the number. So that is how it is currently done. Then we look at how the current tallying process works. So I mentioned earlier, how it was manually done before. And each stevedore had their own way of, jotting down the cargo counts. But now that has been all standardized, and each one of them has now been given an iPad, so that they just tally into the iPad. You can see the video streaming on the right side. And then at the end of the shift, he doesn't need to do anything else. He doesn't need to consolidate. He doesn't need to tally. It's all in the system already. So that's how far we have done the digitalization here. The next stage is to then identify this cargo and feed into this particular module here automatically, so that even that act of kind of pressing the numbers there or doing the count is not required anymore.
Right. Thanks, Parik. Oh, you still have the next slide?
Yeah, sorry, just do a quick roundup then. So that was on the main port side. And then on the lighter terminals, which I mentioned, you can see over here on the left bottom, you can see there's a small cherry picker being loaded onto the ship. It's actually a small craft. And then you can see the drums, you can see pallets, which earlier ESS mentioned about, that goes to our terminal. And then this is a single pallet in this case because the weight is already there. There could be other lighter pallets, so they carry multiple pallets in one lift. So there are many combinations of this cargo being also handled. And again, we want to put a video analytics to it and count the number of lifts. At the same time, look at the cargo itself and identify it. So these are the two work areas. I'll just move on to the quick last slide, which is the focus area. So you can see there's two things. One is the general cargo on the main port side. There are two types of products, the steel products and the other GC. In the steel products, what we want to do is, you can see the green color boxes, which is the rebars and the wire rod coils, for which we need the SKU identification, which means you need to know the rebar diameter and the number of bundles. Whereas in the other cases, you just need to know the type of cargo. For example, here you've seen there's an example here, just a hollow section or a steel plate and the number of counts. So there's two different things that we want to achieve. So the orange color here, all are those which are only requiring cargo type identification and the counts. Whereas on the green side, we need to know the exact diameter or the SKU and the counts. Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a very clear picture of what we want. Well, open to Q&A.
All right, if you go to the previous slide, again, this one, where is the focus? Because it seems that there are different types of cargoes. Is there a priority that Jurong Port is focusing on right now that the solution providers can just deep dive into?
I see. So for the solution providers, basically the one in the green boxes is definitely one priority. But again, that's going to be a bit more complex. So I wanted to keep it open for them to count the more, I would say, easily identified cargoes, such as the steel pipes, which are there's a pipe is around in a cross section. It's easier to identify. Whereas the rebar bundles, they sag and it's difficult to get the cross section, and to get the diameter itself of each rebar is a bit difficult. So we wanted to see, depending on the expertise that we have, with the startups, we wanted to keep it kind of a bit of both.
Right. Okay. So we're looking at this, and what is the kind of accuracy you're looking at?
Yeah. So in the problem statement, we were looking at 85% accuracy in terms of at a beginning stage. Mm-hmm. In order to then at least move on to the next level of, because all these are related to the kind of data we have and the database we have and the kind of imagery we capture, so that it's easier to match and then give a more accurate count. Yeah.
So the idea here is to be integrated into your digital tally system.
Correct. Yep.
Right? Okay. Yep. So thanks for the detailed sharing. I have some Q&A. All right, someone's asking, do you currently have enough good quality images or videos for this? Are those available anywhere? I think, okay, so the first question is to you, Parik, about do you have enough good quality images for machine learning? And then are those available? I think we could actually do like a one-to-one offline link up, right? Where Jurong Port and Parik will be able to share once you've actually given us details about what are your capabilities like and what your solution aim to detect.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and then someone's actually asking, is the presentation for sharing? So this presentation, I think it's really useful and valuable for everyone. It will be available, this recording will be available on the Pier71 website once after this live webinar ends. so you'll be able to you'll be able to revisit this again.
Yep. So for the first question, yes, we do have good quality images of these cargoes. And I think once we kind of settle down with the company, we can always kind of, select a few of these. And this was just to give a spread of it. But obviously, we, depending on the challenge stage, we can choose a few from the orange part. And then for the green part, we will definitely want to kind of pursue that.
Right. Sounds like a big operation for now. But what is the kind of support that Jurong Port will be able to offer to the solution providers? After all, it's a co-development and pilot process, right?
Yes. So typically, how we work is, with any company who comes with us to kind of give any kind of solutions, we'll definitely bring them along in terms of making them understand how our operations itself. And then from there on, move on to the kind of data they want. We can help them to collect to a certain level that we already have, and as well as things wherein they are limited access to these guys to go and take the videos, or for example even kind of data they want to collect. So that support will be definitely landed to them.
Thank you, Parik. So you hear them, you hear from the horse's mouth that you will definitely get support from that, and then you have good quality images for learning. All right. Any more questions? If you have any questions, you can actually throw in the Q&A chat box here. But thanks, Parik, for the very informative and detailed sharing. Seems like you have quite a overhaul to actually reduce the human error here, but it's definitely necessary. How about, let's take a look at some of the questions we have. Tell us a bit about our experience working with some of our Smart Port Challenge startups in the previous years. I mean, Jurong Port has been a fervent supporter, a very good supporter of this Smart Port Challenge. You guys have actually thrown in some of the challenge statements or innovation opportunities over the years. So perhaps you could actually shed some light on the kind of support and kind of challenges that you have, and what kind of support did Jurong Port offer to help startups, shortlisted startups, to sort of complete or rather to actually proceed with the pilot.
Yeah, so I think how we typically work is, and in fact, we're very glad that with our industry we have MPA and SMI and the entire maritime industry being supported by the Maritime Connect as well, to kind of share our problems with the industry, and not just within the industry, but also to people who are from the other industries to come and solve our problems. So I think that we are pretty thankful of. And the other part where we kind of put up these problems, and we I would say we get to work with different partners. There's a mutual learning always in this process, wherein we kind of learn at different technologies from them, and at the same time they learn more from us in terms of how operations work in different parts of the world, as well as the kind of environment we have, because it's pretty unique. Nowhere in the world you have kind of this kind of a alien, wherein all kind of cargo lands, because many of the terminals outside in the world, they are pretty focused, handling pure steel, or so in case of Singapore, we are a small country, and anything that doesn't go into a container comes to Jurong Port. So that's where we are a very different kind, wherein for people,
opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, obviously, so it is a learning curve for them as well, and I think we are more than happy for them to come along and understand, so that they can give us more innovative solutions. Yeah.
Thanks, Parik. Thanks for your time. Right. So what is the one last thing you'd like to share to the innovators, or to invite them to attempt your challenge statements? This question is out to everyone. Kim Liang, Jessica, Vishal.
Should I give it a go first?
Go for it, Parik.
Okay, so I think much has been talked about, and I believe the startups have a fresh mind, and I think they don't carry a baggage, especially from a maritime sector, which is an age-old industry, and a lot of the engineers have a certain mindset that they carry with along, and with this kind of a setup, we kind of welcome fresh views. What I would like to say is that while you're considering all this, new technologies being deployed for any of the solutions you want to bring in, it is important to first of all understand the operation, because while you have a good solution, the practicality of it at the end of the day would definitely have a big impact on the adaptability and the adoption of the, I would say, the solution at a larger scale. So I think getting the fundamentals right is important, and then maybe you can explore all ways and means to kind of slice and dice and make sure that the solution works for the challenge here.
Well said. Which is why they need to participate in this program. That's when they get to meet you and to learn about the operations and the behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what about Vishal? What is the you would like to share to the innovators?
What I would like to say is that, this plastic pollution is not a unique problem, but what we are really looking for is solutions like, as Prashil also said, something out of the box. And, it's kind of a blank canvas. So it's not only that you need to focus on the recycling or only on the reduction of the plastic. Like, just think about it as a problem that we have, which is there's a lot of plastic pollution. So how can we actually reduce it? Either you go through recycling or some other stuff. So looking forward to see some also examples from other industries.
I like what you said about we do not want to pigeonhole the innovators and their solutions, because at the end of the day, plastic reduction and recycling is a global issue, right? So we are calling all innovators out there to see how we can potentially solve this. Yep. All right, so Kim Liang?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Vishal and the rest have mentioned. We don't really want to restrict anyone. Of course, we have our ideas on where we could develop further, but to a certain extent, we have been in the marine industry for quite some time. There are other more innovative solutions out there, and we don't want to restrict their train of thought, and that's why out of the box.
I think earlier we discussed, Kim Liang and I, we were discussing about, instead of focusing on the material change, is there a possibility to even deep dive into the process of recycling and reduction as well? So that's something for you to think about, right? Jessica?
Yeah, so plastic is everywhere, and especially so in the maritime or logistics sector. So somehow we just have to start somewhere. So don't be afraid of what your idea is, and yeah, we look forward to all the suggestions that you have.
Very awesome. All right, thanks guys. It's 4:59. In fact, this is 5 p.m. right on the dot. Thanks for your time. To all innovators out there, you can submit your proposal through our pearson1.sg website. Now, shortlisted finalists, I can't repeat this more, will be eligible to apply for the MPA grant of up to $50,000, and you get to be connected to the Singapore maritime ecosystem. You get to get your solutions adopted by awesome folks like them. And of course, this coming Thursday, on the 8th of July at 4 p.m., we are going to invite Keppel, Smith, Towage, and Wilhelmsen to talk about harbour tax monitoring and centralization of port regulations. Now, if you're interested to solve the challenges as related to this, please sign up. You are looking at the sign up page and registration page right now. And of course, one more thing. Now, InnoFest, which is the region's largest startup festival, will be held next week from 14 to 16 July. It will be fully virtual and admission is free. Now, Pearson21 will be hosting a panel discussion on the conditions for growth of maritime tech startups, suitable for folks like you guys, on 15 July at 4:30 p.m. Now, we also have 9 startups exhibiting. So do sign up. I'm going to throw the link at the chat later, and we hope to see you there. Now, on behalf of Pearson21 team, we are signing out right now, and I'll see you on Thursday. Goodbye. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye. Thank you.